He who holds the gold and manufactures wins, period. He who consumes and borrows and lives beyond their means fails. It's Monday, March 14, 2022. Another wild ride on Wall Street today. Get this, Dow Jones earlier today was up 451 points. Markets closed a little while ago. Dow Jones closes up 1 point. Up 451 points earlier, closes up just one single point. S&P down 31.2 today. NASDAQ down 266 points. And this is beginning, I think, to become a concern for the housing market. 30-year fixed mortgage today, 4.38%. This is going to be a problem, and this number is going to increase. Gold, silver, Bitcoin, oil, all of them slammed today. Very interesting day. Markets just up and down all day. Wolfstreet.com. I want to go over a few of these articles with you now. This article titled, Why This is the Most Reckless Fed Ever and What I Think the Fed Should Do to Reverse and Mitigate the Effects of Policy Errors. I won't go into that entire article, but just a couple key points here that all of us, I think, would agree with, and now all realize that the Fed has been lying. The Fed's in big trouble. Check the article out if you get a couple minutes today. It's very, very good. But at first, the Fed denied inflation. Remember, there's no inflation. Then they said it was transitory. Then they blamed it on the supply chain disruption, all the ships piling up on the West Coast. And many people were fine with all this because they were still getting stimulus checks or still had some of that stimulus money, still had some of that benefit money left over, still sitting on some cash, and they were willing to pay whatever they had to pay for a car or a big screen or to go out to dinner. People were willing to pay it because they had plenty of free money. They've been getting free money for the past 2 years. Well, now things are getting very, very worrisome for the Fed and for the average American. And the Fed has created a disaster. The average American has created a disaster. The Fed now not knowing what to do, and the average American does not know what to do now either. The free money has dried up, and the average American is in big trouble as they're tapping out credit cards. The Fed has very serious decisions ahead here to make. Will they get aggressive? Probably not. I expect a 25 basis point rate hike this week. It could be 50, but I think right now the sure bet is going to be 25 basis points. It's going to do absolutely nothing. It is a drop in the swimming pool. And what is the average American going to do? Well, this will do nothing to stop this inflation fire. In fact, the Fed really is an arsonist here now, pouring more fuel on the fire. 25 basis points going to do absolutely nothing. And this should be, what's amazing is you look at gold and silver today, hammered, along with everything else. But this is nothing but great news for gold and silver because this just guarantees that the inflation fire is not going to be put out. In fact, they're going to throw more fuel on the fire. Remember, they just passed this $1.5 trillion package, which means you're going to see inflation for years to come. That money will guarantee that we're going to see more inflation in 2023. This fire is not going to be put out anytime soon. And in order to do so, the Fed would have to get so aggressive. Remember, you have to raise interest rates above the rate of inflation. And we all know that real inflation is not 7.9%. It's 17, 18, maybe 20+%. We're in big trouble, ladies and gentlemen. The Fed's in a corner. They're out of tricks. And the average American is out of money. It's going to end very, very badly. And this is why I've been, talking for a couple years now, why you got to have a safety net, why you got to have some cash put away, barterable items, food, water, security. you know, solar panels, whatever. I mean, for the last few years, we've had to really think outside of the box on how to prepare for what's coming. The Fed is they're in a corner, ladies and gentlemen, and there's no way out of this. Either way, whether they want to reverse course and just start pumping, you know, trillions and trillions of dollars more into the economy, say goodbye to the US dollar. If they get aggressive and raise rates, we're going into the greatest depression the world has ever seen. So either, as I've said in the past, we're going down the road of Venezuela or we're going down the road of a Great Depression. Pick your poison, ladies and gentlemen. Either way, it is going to be a nightmare. U.S. households expect record spending increases as all prices soar. This on the Hedge today. And these are the expectations over the next year here of what people see is coming. Gas prices to rise 8.82%. Food prices to rise 9.23%. Medical costs to go up another 9.59%. College tuition, another 9%. Rent prices to increase 10.05%. This over the next year. This is what people see. And you know what? I think that these numbers are very, very conservative. I think that we're going to see increases even bigger than that. Vice News, almost 1,000 people are now living in Phoenix, exploding tent city. This is another big problem. We have so many people living on the sidewalks, in boxes and tents, sleeping in cars, sleeping in vans. And this problem is going to continue to increase. And there are going to be people that all of us know that are going to face the realization that they're homeless, that there's no place to go. They have no family to fall back on. They don't have a church to fall back on. And let's face it, most of the churches have completely just checked out, worthless. But we're going to know people that really begin to hit hard times here very, very soon. And you may already know those type of people. And we all know people that have had to move back home, people that have had to take in roommates, people who have maybe had to downsize, people who've made big changes now in their life because of what this economy is doing to them. We live in an economy now where it's paycheck to paycheck. And if a spouse loses a job, it's big trouble. And this is why, at least in my area, I've seen so many people moving back home. And a lot of you have written and have seen the same thing where you're seeing 5, 6, 7, 8 cars parked out in front of a house. And this is how people are going to have to do it to survive. Families are going to have to move back in. The kids are moving in. The cousins, the nieces, the nephews, everybody's moving in. And you know, this is a time where you may be faced with that option. And a lot of people won't do it because their ego, they have such a big ego that they are not willing to give up the zip code, the car, the lifestyle. And these people, they're going to be in very, very big trouble. Another article on the Hedge today, Foxconn hits iPhone production at factories in Shenzhen due to lockdown. 20% of all iPhones are made here. And the question is today, comment down below, but if China begins to close more of its country down, closing ports down, begins to ship less product, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for the rest of the world? What does it mean when you can't get a iMac or an iPhone? What is that going to mean? What does that mean when you go to a Walmart and half the shelves are empty because China has had to close down because of this health crisis? And at the worst possible time. I mean, think about where we're at right now, where we are seeing shortages of everything. And this is going to really be uncomfortable, make life really uncomfortable for so many people. And as I've been saying over the past couple of years, as many of you have been saying over the past couple of years, you know, prepare, put barterable items away, put the food and water away, you know, put away things that you may need. And so many people who are so ignorant to what's happening and ignorant to what can happen and just, you know, just so naive that this could never happen, that could never happen. I think all of us today, anybody watching this video, is under the assumption now that anything is possible. And the people who are the most unprepared going into this are going to be the biggest victims. The people that have the debt. I mean, just think right now, people who have debt now having to pay over $6 for gas, the food prices skyrocketing, the shelves going empty, the shortages, paying more for everything. But this is just the beginning. These people are already getting tapped out right now, just in the early innings of all of this. And for the people out there who've been preparing, have the food, the water, the barterable items, the gold, the silver, the security, if the lights went out today, you're good for 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it may be, 30 days, whatever the case may be. But the people who are broke, what are they going to do when the lights go out, a grid goes down, the internet goes down, their spouse loses a job? They're done. They're done. These people are, I don't know if they realize it yet, but they're in just enormous trouble. And usually the worst things happen when people have no safety net, when they have no preparations, when they have no money. This is when the worst things happen. This is when the kid falls down, needs 20 stitches. This is when the alternator goes out. This is when the air conditioner at the house blows up and it's a $2,000 repair, or you need to replace it with a brand new one for $5,000. The transmission goes out, there's $5,000-$6,000 right there. This is when the worst things happen, is when you're least prepared. Now, isn't it interesting? I don't know about all of you, but I've noticed the more prepared I am, the least amount of things go wrong. Now, I don't know. I'm going to knock on wood, but it seems like the more prepared you are, the least things can go wrong or do go wrong. Not to say that they can't go wrong or won't go wrong, but when you're just going paycheck to paycheck, it just seems like every week something goes wrong, another bill pops up, another bill, and you just can't get ahead. But once you get ahead, once you make those sacrifices, you pay down the debt, you start being more critical of what you're buying and what you need and don't need, and you start really becoming more financially responsible, I've noticed that there are less and less things that go wrong. And when something does go wrong, it's no big deal because you have the money to take care of it. So think about that. And if you can, right now, do what you have to do. Cut out what you need to cut out and make sure you're getting prepared. Another article today on WallStreet.com. But whose money evaporated when JP Morgan, Blackrock, PIMCO, CalPERS, and others report huge losses on Russian assets? And just to kind of paraphrase through this article, another great article. If you get a few minutes, check it out. Blackrock, their Russian assets were down to about $1 billion last month from $18.2 billion. That's a $17 billion plunge. PIMCO had about $2.6 billion in Russian debt and bets on Russian credit default swaps. Pension funds, like the one right out here, CalPERS, have loaded up on Russian assets over the years. And is your pension invested in Russia? So as things are imploding over there, who pays the price? Well, it's not going to be the JP Morgans. It's not going to be the Blackrocks. It's going to be the retail investors. It's going to be the beneficiaries to these pensions. That's who pays the price. And if you're relying on a 401k or a pension down the road, that if you think it's going to be there, I really hope it is. But what are the odds that you take a 25%, 50% haircut down the road? What are the odds that maybe your pension just completely evaporates? We have such a reliance on the system that it's going to be there for us when we need it to be, when we retire, when there's an emergency. And many people are going to learn the hard way not to trust anybody but themselves. They're going to learn the hard way that the system does not have their back or their best interest at heart. So while the pensions and these hedge funds and big banks are investing all over the world, and let's not forget China, Evergrande, and all these real estate development companies that, again, your pensions, hedge funds, banks are invested in, which we're not hearing anything about as the Chinese stock market absolutely got devastated last night. We're not hearing anything about that, but so many people are going to go watch a baseball game, or they're watching basketball, or they're watching cartoons, whatever they're doing, have no idea where their futures are is in regards to their pensions and their investments. They've been thrown all over the place into these hostile environments now. And there's going to be huge blowback, huge ramifications here in America because of what's happening in other parts of the world. And that includes your pensions and the money that you have invested in these markets, in hedge funds. We're going to feel some big ramifications at some point right here. Morgan Stanley lists 3 ways the world will respond as sanctions threaten the dollar's dominance. Now, they're not saying that the dollar is going away anytime soon. Quite the contrary. They think it'll be around quite a while. But at some point in history, the dollar is not going to be the world reserve currency. And it says there's 3 things you can do. Identify the safest asset. That's what Morgan Stanley says. Number 2, political alliances could be key. Identify political alliances. 3, onshoring foreign exchange assets. There is a big difference between an FX deposit, which is foreign currency, in a foreign bank account under the jurisdiction of a foreign government, and an FX deposit that you physically own on your home ground. And I'll take it one step farther. You could have money and currency in your U.S. bank account, or you could own currency in a foreign bank account. Which is safer? Probably the currency here in America. But take it one step farther. I'd rather hold my own currency in my own bank, my own private vaults, in my own private locations, because I've seen too many banks close, too many ATMs shut down, and too many question marks about the banking system in America, where it's all going, and how easily it can be shut off, and how easily the doors can be locked, and you can't access your money, or limited amounts that you can access. So you walk into a bank, you need 5,000, they're only going to allow you to have 2,000, or the bank's just closed and you have to go to the ATM where you can get 400. So there's a lot of counterparty risk here, as opposed to being your own central bank, putting that cash in your own vaults, in your own locations. Continuing with this article, both might be considered cash. They're not equivalent in accessibility or safety. One way of doing this is to buy physical gold and store it safely. There will be reserve diversification. We continue to believe that the share of the Chinese yuan in global FX reserves could reach 5 to 10% by 2030, and this will be at the dollar's expense. That's not that far away, but what if it was accelerated with everything that's happening right now? And I say this because we are beginning to see more and more reports about Russia and China cutting deals behind the scenes, trading oil and food, cutting the dollar out, getting out of the SWIFT system, going to the CIP system. And now this article today on the Hedge, U.S. threatens consequences for China if military aid given to Russia for this war in Eastern Europe. And as this is happening, all hell breaking loose in the Chinese markets last night. Their stock market was absolutely hammered. Chinese property junk bonds hammered. But we must remember, the U.S. has very little manufacturing and resources. What happens if China begins to threaten America, begins to put sanctions on America? They don't need a whole lot from America, but America needs a whole lot from them. But again, we go back to what's happening behind the scenes. And what does this mean for the dollar? Countries are doing whatever they can to get out of the dollar. Right now, most of them are forced into it. But this is going to change, ladies and gentlemen. It really is. And this is why I think it's so important to be your own central bank and so important to own some physical gold and silver. I don't give financial advice, but I can tell you that's what I'm doing. That's what my friends are doing. And I don't really care what happens to the Chinese stock market, because at the end of the day, it comes down to how much gold does China own? How much do they manufacture? And what kind of deals are they cutting with other big countries throughout the world? And Asia is going to be the biggest economy on earth, period. And we can sit here and go, well, the stock market's better in America. Well, that's wonderful. What does America make? What do we produce? Debt? Consumption? China isn't looking just to what's going to happen tomorrow. They're looking down the road, 10 years, 100 years, and they're positioning themselves. And yeah, their markets might get crushed, but if everything implodes, how do you rise up as a country and rebuild? Well, you make things, you manufacture, you produce. Well, that's what they do. They're manufacturing and producing literally everything in the world right there. So as the global economy heads into a depression, countries like China are going to survive, and they're going to prosper and flourish because they manufacture everything. Here in America, if we're going to blame everything on the stock market, that everything's good because the stock market's up, that's fine. But the stock market really plays no role in my life, and it plays no role in most people's lives. People right now are figuring out how they're going to fill up their car to go to work tomorrow. They're trying to figure out how they're going to put food on the table and feed their kids. They're trying to figure out how they're going to pay rent this month. Not if the Dow Jones is up 20 or 30 or 50 points today, or 500 or down 500 in all this massive volatility. It's all artificial anyways. It's meaningless. And for most of this country, it means absolutely nothing. It's a complete fraud. The average American is just thinking how they're going to pay their bills. And when you look at a country like China that is manufacturing literally everything, they are going to be the next world superpower. And I don't hate anybody in China. I don't agree with their government, but I wish no ill will upon anybody. But it's such a sad state of affairs to see how America just quit. America just sent everything overseas. The jobs, the companies, the manufacturers, it's all gone. And how easily it was for us just to give it all up. And we can blame it on politicians, and we can blame it on corporate America, blame it on whoever you want. But at the end of the day, it's all gone. No matter whose fault it is, it's all gone. And we are all going to suffer the consequences now because of what has transpired over the last few decades. This didn't happen overnight. It happened over decades. And China, no matter what happens to the global economy, China is going to flourish. They are going to absolutely flourish because they manufacture. And he who holds the gold and manufactures wins, period. He who consumes and borrows and lives beyond their means fails. America is failing, and America has no idea how bad this is about to get. America has never seen tough times. At least in my lifetime, I haven't. Maybe if you're 90 or 100 years old, you have. But it's been a long time since we've seen real severe financial times in America. But this is going to begin to accelerate, ladies and gentlemen. You have very little time to get ready. So my advice to you today is get ready. God bless you all.